Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Next Level Real Talk Podcast, where we have conversations on the journey of personal transformation and the pursuit of lasting peace and happiness with Sheldon and David. Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to our podcast, Next Level Real Talk with Sheldon and David. Here we are back again.
Welcome back for another episode of Next Level Real Talk.
Yeah, and
Glad to have you.
we are definitely glad to have you and definitely hearing that some people are actually listening to this stuff, which is
Yeah,
at once
awesome.
exciting and rewarding and scary and shocking at the same time, right? You're like, what? Somebody's actually listening to it?
So
At least
just
that's
just
my
so
reaction.
just so all of you listening out there, we may be very outgoing and gregarious, but we have a little what do you call that? Uh, Inside kind of scared thing. So just
Yeah.
we're excited
Especially
about what we're
doing this
doing. And
thing
yeah,
and
I've been
just
speaking all my
putting
life,
all,
and here I am, kind of like, but
yeah, and
it's
just putting
exciting
it
to
all
know
out
that
there, right?
exciting to know that people are hearing us and listening to us, and we're hope that you get some more out of this today, and get out of this podcast and keep listening to us. If you haven't listened to the ones before, make sure you go back because it's like our fifth episode, if I remember right. Make sure you go back and listen to those. There's one talks about Sheldon, one talks about me, and then we went into some things about how you make a difference, and then sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Nice summary, brother. I don't know if I could have remembered that. Okay, yeah, that's absolutely it. And the last one was about talking about being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and sort of what it takes to sort of start this process of maybe I can look at things differently, right? Just being maybe stressed out and starting to feel that anxiety, starting to say, hey, is there a
Hmm.
different way? Could I look at things differently? Um, and then that idea of how breathing can sort of control how your body feels, it has that stress response, right? And how you can change your breathing and to change
Hmm.
that. um, and that's an important tool to have as you start this process of what we were calling, and you had mentioned it a bunch of times, Dave, right, several times, about that idea of turning inward.
Turning inward.
um,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. And you know
It's a lot of just going inside yourself and being honest with yourself, and that's what we want to talk about because that's hard. It's not something that we all want to do, and but it's the way to start really the healing and trying to find that peace. And
yeah, and the key to the piece is the healing, right?
yeah,
And that idea of turning inward, meaning, and I know we've mentioned that before, which is, that idea that most of us wish something were different, and think that if something were different, then we would be happy, like the
exactly.
job or the house or the, you
Yeah.
know,
If I only had
relationship
this much
or
money, I'd be happier. If I had this kind of a house, I'd be happier. If I had this car, I'd be happier. If I had this wife or these children or whatever in life
right. If
or the
something
job.
were different and other than it is, then I would be better. And
Hmm.
then when you really start to think about that, you're making your happiness conditional on the external environment. And
Hmm.
then what we were proposing and saying is that, you can absolutely have a peace that passes, that's beyond all understanding, right? The peace that
Hmm.
you can't even comprehend. Why? Because it's not conditional on your external circumstances. That there is a peace, be still, right? That you still your mind and you go inside, and you can find a peace there, and it
Hmm.
is completely independent. It's actually your inherent quality. It's actually the nature of the divine spark within you. The wish fulfilling jewel, as the Buddhists would call it, the diamond, which is the wish fulfilling jewel, the self with a capital S, the Atman in Hinduism, right? Whatever it is that you're calling that thing, that there is this divine spark, the Christ consciousness within you that is absolutely um, beautiful,
Yeah.
at peace, and loving, and all this amazing stuff. It makes you feel good, right? When you start to access that vibration, when you start to contact that. But you have to stop looking outward at finding solutions outside,
Hmm.
and then turn around and start looking inside,
So
going
let
within,
me
as you were saying.
let me quote a famous philosopher, Sheryl Crow. I'm gonna go off a little bit off of one of her songs. It's not wanting what you have; it's having what. No, it's not having what you want; it's wanting what you have. So it's like, okay, I want that car. yeah, but I got a nice truck right here. Why do I need that? I've got something okay.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with this, but me wanting something else or looking on the outside is
Yeah.
making it worse. So
Yes.
looking inside, I've got this. I'm okay. So that's the same thing. So I mean, not that she's a philosopher, but she kind of is. but that's that same thing. We got to look. What do I have? What's in me? What's going on here? And how can I make this temple better?
Right.
So
And having gratitude for what's already in there
mhm,
and everything that's in there, right?
yeah.
Um, it also, this idea of, okay, we're gonna look inside and see what's in there, the good, the bad, the ugly, as you were saying, right?
Ooh. Hmm.
Looking at all of it, the entire picture. Um, is a sense of taking responsibility, personal responsibility, right? To talk about the
Hmm.
ability to respond. I'm taking responsibility, and I have this ability to respond in a very specific way versus react. And we were talking about that in the last episode, right? That instantaneous
Yep.
reaction versus
Hmm.
when you can stop and breathe and slow your breathing and you're conscious, you can choose a response, right? So you have the ability to respond. So when you're taking that personal responsibility for how you're feeling inside versus this idea of blaming everybody,
And
and
well, you
and every
become you're the victim. I'm
yeah,
the victim. It's all your fault. It's like
right,
they're doing this to me. Instead of being the victim, you look inside and say, "What do I need to look at me, and how can I work on me?"
yeah,
And then
100%,
um, just stop being, you know, the victim,
yeah,
because
and
that really puts you in that dark world.
and there are, and I this always makes me nervous because there are people that have been through such horrific things in their lives, right? You and I both had some
Hmm.
difficult things, and if you've listened to me describe my life and you'd say, okay, Sheldon's been through a couple of things, you know what I mean? But there are some
Mine's
people that
mellow
have
to yours.
made
So,
that make our lives look like absolutely nothing, right? Like a
yes.
beautiful cakewalk of, um, roses and puppy dogs and lilies, right? Like nothing but flowers and beauty, right? By comparison to some people's lives, right? There are people out there that
Yeah.
have lived some horrific lives. And so
And
when
on that
people are
show,
in
know that as we talk this way, we're not what demoralizing or saying that's not you can always come out of that. That's going to
yeah,
take a lot of work for some of those that are really into those
yeah,
situations,
yeah,
and we hope that they get that process. And we have not been down that road of some of these people that we're thinking
right.
of. So so know that out there that that's we understand that this may not
Yeah.
be this may be a deeper level, but we're on not that
Yeah.
deep at this point. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But and then I tend to get into certain fundamentals like, okay, hey, this is a principle and this is what you got to do no matter what. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
and everybody's different and there are a million different paths even for as you take that
yes,
moment to turn within and look, are you doing that with professional therapy, and a help or a guru or a priest or a minister or somebody, you know what I mean, that you're actually
yep,
leaning on and seeking regular guidance and counseling. And I'm not saying that this is to replace that, but you and I have both been through certain things, and there are some principles that I feel like are almost kind of universal. Again, it's not that you
yeah,
might have different techniques about what you're doing, but for me, the principle of turning within and looking at stuff with love and compassion um,
hmm,
is necessary, right, for this
yeah,
process of healing, right? And healing is this process of what leads to this release of whatever is in there, the pain, the guilt, the shame, the
yes,
the sense of victimhood. All of that stuff can be released, and I think that that's um, important to know conceptually, because I do think that some people, sometimes there's so much pain in there that we don't think it'll ever go away. We don't think it
hmm,
can be healed. We think we're fundamentally broken. Um, and to be honest with you, that's one of my things about, traditional Christianity. I don't even like that thing that you're a sinner and you are fundamentally flawed. I actually am of the belief that your divinity within you is fundamentally unflawed and that you have to access that is the kingdom of God within that you are seeking first, that you can access that place. Um, and it doesn't mean your humanity doesn't have these things, but when you see, and so sometimes when they describe it, they make it sound like you're flawed and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? And so anyway,
yeah. So because I'm the I'm a little bit opposite of him. I mean, understand we're best of friends. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm the one where we are all sinners. That's what my Christian I believe. We are all sinners, but doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It means okay, I just got to work through things in which that's just who we are, and everyone's at different levels, and that's where have to go inside and we start looking at ourselves.
Yeah, and I think as a human being, do we all make mistakes? Absolutely, right?
Totally.
And so
If
that could be,
you say
okay,
you
I'm a
don't, you're
sinner,
lying.
right? And how sometimes the church has sometimes depicted that in a way. Sometimes it feels like, and again, this might be my own thing that's not healed, right?
Hmm.
Like, right, I might have this stuff about certain religions that I think isn't healed, and that's absolutely,
Hmm.
possible. But I feel sometimes it feels like a manipulation for power, right? The church has control over people by saying you are flawed and you have to come to the church in order to be healed. And so I do, so that kind of is some of the stuff that comes up for me. But the idea that that the humanness of us, you know, is perfectly imperfect, as I've heard somebody say, which I absolutely believe, right?
Hmm.
But what is the core? The core is this beauty that's within us that is absolutely connected, And so to say that at your core you're a sinner, to me, it's like, no, at your core you're actually divine and beautiful. And that should be emphasized rather
Hmm.
than the other way around. Does it mean you don't have these things? Absolutely not, right? So yeah, we all have um, the capability. And I'm also a big believer that, the idea of sin, the word, I think the original word was an archery term, right? That said, you missed the mark, right?
Hmm.
And I had a mentor who said, yeah, it didn't have any of the stigma that it has now, even in the early church. The early church for the first 1,000 years, it was just like, yeah, you made a mistake, try again, which is what the original meaning of the word meant. Hey, keep going, right? Like, keep going. You're okay, keep going. Versus, you're a piece of shit. Give more money to the church or whatever,
Yeah.
So again, sorry, sorry. I have my things, right? Um, so these
And
things
as
are
we said at the
clearly not
beginning,
healed.
we're all coming from different areas. We're all
Yeah,
coming. It's a
yeah,
safe space, so we talk and we're
yeah.
there. Yeah.
So the idea of healing, the idea of that healing is the fundamental tool. Uh, when you're turning inside and looking at whatever is coming up, that there's this process of healing. And again, as we've said before, there's millions of techniques. And that's what I think is like, the idea of you're climbing the mountain and everybody's trying to get to the top of the mountain, but which side of the mountain you're on, what pathway are you taking? There's a million
Hmm.
techniques for how you get up there, but we're all trying to
Yeah.
climb the same mountain, right? Again, for me, the fundamental principle is love. Um,
Hmm.
but I think that, you know, most of us don't understand what real love is or what unconditional love is. And I'm actually of the belief that unconditional love is beyond the capacity of your mind to comprehend. It's so, right? It's like, how do you love another being without any conditions whatsoever? Like, it doesn't matter what you do, I will love you. And to me, the story I shared about my mom cooking me the
Hmm.
food when I was going down, that mother's love is one of those things that kind of stereotypically is, has that quality of unconditional. The stereotype is that the
Yeah.
father's a little more conditional. Son, you better behave well and do well. You know what I mean? And then I'll love you, right?
Hmm.
Whereas the mom is just like, I love you no matter what. So the mom typically has been
Yep.
represented as more unconditional love, and then the father was more conditional, kind of, right? Um, Again, that's just a stereotype, right? But a generalization. But that idea, right, of that's one
Yeah.
of the
It gives an
closest
idea, a
things we
picture of
have
it all. Yeah.
in humanity for this example of what is it, you have the mother that's son killed a bunch of people and she's, I just see my little boy and I love him no matter what. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what he did, I'm going to
Yeah.
love him no matter what is unconditional love? And that is the kind of a idea of how do you look at all your ugliness, the good, the
Hmm.
bad, and your ugly, with that kind of love, without judgment. And I
And it's
think,
you have to understand that sometimes no, and I can't. As Sheldon said, there's some levels of trauma that we have not experienced, so we can't empathize. But when you go inside, you got to realize sometimes you're not responsible for some of those traumas, but it's still painful within you, and that's where you have to work through it, and that's the hard part when you turn inwards and
yeah,
look
yeah,
is that the ugly. That's the ugly. It's
Yep.
easy to look at the good and sometimes the bad, but when you get to that ugly, it hurts, and
I
it's a
mean,
struggle to get through.
and I've known people that have been through horrific things. You know, I know women that have been through, childhood molestation and stuff like that, right? Where obviously a child is not guilty of doing anything. And yet
Yep.
oftentimes there's this weird guilt, and I don't want to belittle it, but it's like mind boggling that, a person could carry a sense of guilt and shame about that. Like, like it's their fault somehow. And yet children
Yeah.
do believe that, right? A child thinks that this is happening for, a reason that I had
Yeah.
something to do with it. Like it's my
Yeah.
fault in some way. Right. And then we can carry that with us. So how do you look at that with unconditional love for yourself? Right. And it always starts first with yourself, right? For that child,
Hmm.
for, whatever it is, because these things, again, that's my belief, is that pure unconditional love can heal all things. Perfect love casts out all fear. Love heals all things. that
Hmm.
that those sayings mean something, and that they're real, and that's been my own personal experience, is that the more compassion I can have for myself, the more grounded I am in that, the more compassionate and loving I can be out in the world. You cannot give what you haven't received, right? So if you haven't received that love and accepted it for yourself, then
You
how are
can't
you
give it.
passing it on?
Yeah.
Right. And the more that you open up, it's kind of that idea. um, Also, I think the imagery of my cup runneth over always used to come to me, or still does,
Hmm.
is that if you have a glass and it's half filled with how good you feel, and it's only half full, and then you pour some of that goodness out to other people, and now you only have a quarter, you feel like somebody owes you back, right? And that's this
Hmm.
idea of conditional, market exchange. I'm going to do something nice for you, but you got to do something nice for me, right? And that's how most of us actually function if we actually really look at how people are um, dealing with their relationships. There's a kind of weird exchange type of uh, way of looking at things and feeling about things. But the idea of when you have been filled so completely that you're overflowing with a sense of fullness and compassion
Hmm.
and love, because you have received that for yourself and you feel completely healed, then if you give the overflow and you share it to all the people that this overflowing loving compassion that you've already received for yourself, you're not depleted at all. Why? Because it's already filling. Your
Because
cup's
you
already
still have,
filled.
once you go inside and you start working through the mess, I'm just going to say the mess, like you have that, sometimes you have that anger, you're upset, and that's coming out in your personality. Once you go through there and you dig through that ugly and you process it, and that comes down the road talking about some things of how to process that. But once you go in and you look at that and you really think it through, and then accept it for what it is and make whatever changes you need to make, um, and deal with that, maybe trauma, deal with that situation, uh, that starts to open you up for that healing, for that love, for that light. um,
Yes.
and yeah, it may not be overnight, but eventually you start feeling that light, like, wow, I feel so much. I don't feel the burden. I don't feel my
Yes.
shoulders being pulled down. I feel relaxed, and I feel like, that weight's off, literally the weight's off your shoulders.
Mhm.
And that's what going down and really looking within yourself and being honest. You have to be really honest with yourself, because it's going to hurt. And that's what you want to walk through, and be careful that you don't, that you have people to talk to, that you have possibly therapy or whatever it might be. Um, have that little wolf pack of people to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I realize in myself. And then that allows you to open up even more to others.
It's beautiful. Um, and it's an intense process. Obviously it'd be beautiful. It could happen in one night, and you release everything and you're done.
And
But for
tomorrow.
most of us, it's a journey, right? It's an
Yeah.
ongoing journey, right? And it takes some time. But the way you described it was beautiful, right? There is like a loosening that happens. There's a softening that happens. There's an easing that
Mhm.
happens within the body, within the chest, the heart, right? That everything starts to sort of physically change and feel different as you start to shift how you see things, right? When you're looking
Yep.
at things, um, there's a kind of softening that happens in that process. Um, uh,
And at that same point, you start to love yourself and let that not be such a burden to you, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it may take longer, but if I'm angry at something, I'm like, golly, I'm angry at myself for doing this or for who I am or whatever it might be. You start to go, okay, that's what it is. Okay, I'm going to work through this, and you start to let out the love within you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you got it. But around it is that hard core that you've allowed to grow. Okay, that anger, that madness, that whatever it is, slowly starts to break down piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll go to Pink Floyd. Okay, tear down the wall. You got to tear down that wall a little bit.
Remember, we
So
used to listen to Pink Floyd all the time.
all the time. That's why I
We used
reference
to
it.
listen to that all the time.
The wall. So, but it'll you can tear down that wall slowly, piece by piece, and it slowly allows you feel that relaxation and that love coming out, and
Mm-hmm.
then then you can start dealing with it. And you may think, I can't deal with this. There's no way I can deal with it. You need to start somewhere. Just go within and know. First off, is knowing that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may be suppressing it and not even know it's there. And once you recognize it, that's where the hurt may come out. You may cry, you may feel the anger, but then you start realizing, go, okay, I got to work through this and hopefully start working and breaking down that wall. So,
It's beautiful, dude. And I think the Buddhists have this description of the divine spark as this wish fulfilling jewel. They even have a diamond suture, right? But they describe that diamond, which is this wish fulfilling jewel, like all things will be added unto you, right? When you get to that diamond inside, all things will be added unto you. Your wishes will be fulfilled, right? It's the same kind of idea, but they describe it as being covered in mud, right? And when
hmm.
you start
Oh,
that process, it's like drilling a well through all the layers of dirt and mud. And what is that? It's the layers of, the egoic shame, the guilt, the trauma, the wounds, the
hmm.
angers, the bitternesses, all of those things that we've accumulated and not released and not healed and not loved. Right. And as you do that and you release that, all of a sudden you hit this diamond and there's a radiance, there's a light that shines, you know,
Hmm.
and there's a love that you connect to that is inherent in you. Right. And that's what you're sharing. And that's what you're describing to me,
Yeah.
um, is that
And it's,
process of,
yeah. And it's, I don't know, I'm just going to say something right as you said that, but it's as you feel it, that's that part of recognizing it and then starting to say, okay, it's here, and know that you can drill down to that, but it's not going to take a day. It's not going to take,
yeah.
everyone's different. But I think just knowing that you have something, and it may be something that's caused to you or something that it's just you, you're personal. Um, you have to start at that point. And if you don't start by recognizing within you, then you can't get anywhere.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is if you suppress it, then you're keeping it in there and you're
Hmm.
making it harder. And even though you say, okay, I'm not going to deal with it. Well, guess what? It's still inside you. It's still
Hmm.
boiling. You don't know it. And so that's where you have to really take that moment and it, grab the Kleenex. If it's going to be something you're really going to have to deal with and process through, grab it, cry, scream, do what you need to do to process so you get through it. That's the pain that we were talking about. You may have to start with, but as that pain starts with it, you start to feel the love and the pain together, and it slowly processes to where it's all love.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
That's beautiful, dude. And sort of adding on to exactly what you're saying about that idea of suppression, right? Um, they say, a lot of teachers will say that if you try to suppress like the negative feelings, that that idea of it's like again, like I always say, in a valve between the heart and the head, right? It's on or off kind of
hmm.
thing. If you're in your judgment, then you're not in your heart. There's another one where if you're gonna shut off your feelings, you're shutting off all of them. Like you
Yeah.
can't just shut off the negative ones. And that's what we all think we can do. And that's what we all try to do. But really what happens is you end up being a little bit dead and a little bit numb and a little bit lifeless and a little bit,
Hmm.
your vitality is sort of sucked out, right? Because you're shutting it all down. And like you said, you're not getting rid of it. It's not going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
It's
Nope.
just it's fermenting or rotting, whatever word you
Hmm.
want to use, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's just sitting in there. It's not releasing. It stays
Yeah.
within your energetic field until you can open up and
Let it go.
release it, right?
Yeah.
And then as you release, you have to be open to all of it. Like you were saying, you have to accept everything. You have to accept and look at and allow for all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as you start to do that, the good and bad and the ugly get transmuted and cleared. And the next thing you know, you start to connect down to that beautiful place where you're feeling nothing but peace, love, and joy, and very little can shake you off of
Mm.
that, right?
Yeah.
It's the rock foundation
Yeah. The
versus the sand foundation.
yeah. Did you have another point? Finish your point. I got a story to tell you real quick.
Go
And
go ahead.
the so on that, um, there's a song called "Forgiveness" by Matthew West, and I was in my truck. I just pulled home, and I was in my truck listening to it, and it was pretty close after the divorce, and it's a hard song. It talks about being a prisoner, okay, being angry, and being a prisoner. And in one verse, they talk about sometimes forgiveness. Um, Forgiveness can set a prisoner free, from a prison, blah 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 blah. And then a couple lines down, it says, "The prisoner it sets free is you." And I'd listened to that song a million times, and then that one moment, lost it. I can't even tell you how many tears came out of my eyes. It was just an awakening, go like, because I was angry,
Yeah.
obviously, going, at my ex-wife at that point, who's not when you're going through a divorce. Um, and so at that point, it was like, let it go. Just let it go. The prisoner was me. I
Yeah.
mean, me being angry at her was not hurting her.
Yeah.
Um, and not that I wanted to hurt her. That's not anything that. But that anger doesn't hurt her. That anger doesn't stop her from anything. That anger, she doesn't even know, quote unquote, that I'm angry. The angry is only in me and making suppressed in me. And that moment when I said that, that helped me in so many ways, because it was obviously hard at family functions. It was hard to
Hmm.
go and hang out. Um, and at that point, I started seeing a change in me to where
Hmm.
I could sit there and talk to her easily. Or
Hmm.
that's a great word. Way to go, teacher. Um,
We're
you
keeping
know,
that one in. So,
yeah, dang it.
Dave the teacher.
Easilier. I want to use it. That's my new word.
Amen.
So I was able to communicate, and we became very, cordial with each other.
Hmm.
Not that we were angry at each other, but it was just a lot easier. Her and I
More
giggle and
relaxed.
laugh at functions
Yep.
now. And I'm like, going like, I think that was a turning point at that
For
one moment.
sure.
It's like forgiveness sets the prisoner free. And the prisoner was, I was keeping myself prisoner.
Hmm.
And so that's when the wall totally fell down for me at that
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And it was like, I just, man, I remember that moment just bawling my eyes out.
Yeah,
So,
and there's a big old release, right? And that release
oh,
is often emotional and
hmm,
tears, right? And
yep,
and if you, especially if you're a dude and you don't want to feel that shit, right? And you're blocking all that stuff, and you think I ain't gonna be no fucking crybabe, whatever, right? And we have all of that, and we were raised that way. Um,
yeah,
I think the younger guys today are a little bit. It's a little easier. Is that true?
hmm,
It feels like the
yep,
younger kids today, the younger men today, are a little bit more in touch with that stuff than we were.
yeah,
I don't know. In art, again, we're a little older than some people, right?
mm,
And back in the day, you know, you did
mm,
not freaking do that
yeah.
shit.
when
You
I
didn't.
when I told my kids about, hey, I'm going through this trauma, I'm gonna be okay, everything's okay. Just, I think I told her before about little things in class. The next day, the kids were coming in to class. The boys were giving me hugs. Hey, coach, you're gonna be okay. Hey, Smithers, you're gonna be okay. We got you. We got you. I'm like, why are these boys hugging me? It's because it's a different world. You and I wouldn't have gone in, okay, Sean, I'm gonna hug you, I'll
Yeah,
go. I
yeah,
just
whatever
pat
they.
you on the side and I got you,
Yeah,
brother. I got you, brother. But the boys were giving me a hug,
yeah,
which was, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty open for them, I
yeah,
think. I mean, so that's
yeah.
kind of cool.
It's
So yeah, it's a
different,
different,
right?
yeah. So
But it's a beautiful thing, right? And it does feel like there's part of that shifting energies of the different
hmm,
times and stuff like that. But being
yeah,
able to do that, right? And there is an emotional kind of, because when you've buttoned it all down and when you've repressed everything and then you like pop open the little thing, it can be a little bit like a geyser.
yeah,
All that stuff is coming out,
hmm,
right? Because it's been under a pressure cooker for so long. Um, One of the images that I like, because again, I studied a bunch of Eastern stuff, was the Taoism, and the Taoism is a Tao. The Tao, the T is like a D, and for people that don't
hmm,
know, um, but it's that whole yin yang symbol, the dark and the light kind of symbols, right? The little, what the little half circle, little circles in there, right? And it's a symbol of perfect symmetry of half black, half white, right? And like the little S curvy little thing, right? And then at the
Hmm.
maximum part of the black is a white circle, and the maximum part of the white is a little dark circle, right? And it's this image of the yin yang, of the duality of
Then yeah,
balance,
yeah.
right? And the interesting thing is that, to me, most people, a lot of people in the spiritual community, oh, I'm in the white light, I just want to be in light, and then they run away from the dark, or they repress the dark, or they don't
Hmm.
want to talk about the dark because they need to be positive all the time. And I don't want to. And so that's what we do to ourselves too. Oh, I want to think positive. I just need to be happy. And I'm not even going to talk about all that shit. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to give it any energy. I don't want to pay attention to it. Right. So then we're never looking inward. And so
Hmm.
to me, because I see that yin yang symbol, it's like I'm in the white and I'm fighting the dark. So now I'm running away from it. Okay.
Mm.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
in this place where I'm running. That symbol is moving in circles, right? So you're actually in the circle spinning around, you know. You think you're in the white and you're running away from the dark, or you hate
Yeah.
the dark because the dark represents evil. Now you're fighting the dark, right? So now
Hmm.
when you do that, you are caught in this duality, right? You're caught in this battle, good versus evil, whatever it is. But like you were saying, when you turn inside and you look at everything that's in there, the good and the bad. In other words, you look at the white and you look at the black, and you look at that
Hmm.
with equal kind of equanimity. And this is where the breathing exercises come in, right? You have to be able to breathe and sort of relax and accept that, wow, that's in there too. And when you do that, you have transcended. Does it make sense? And it's like the symbol itself. When you're looking at the yin yang symbol, you're not in the white looking at the black, or the black looking at the white. You're literally beyond it, looking at both of them equally. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Stepping
It's
out. Yeah.
yes, which is
Basically.
what the Michael Singer, right? Untethered Soul and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff, right? Step
Totally.
back and
Hmm.
look at yourself from outside
Look at what's
yourself and
going. Yeah, from
observe
outside yourself.
and
Hmm.
detach from your thought processes. All the things that we've been talking about when you're breathing and you can observe and you're
Hmm.
looking at your thoughts and all that kind of stuff,
Watching
and
the
the
clouds go
meditation
by.
processes, the clouds passing through the sky, right? That you
Hmm.
can look within with equanimity and peace. Again, the breathing exercises help us to ground into that, right? At all of what's coming up, both the yin and the yang. That's how I like to look at it, so I don't get judgmental, right? The
Uh-huh.
darkness and evil or the bad, you know what I mean? And sometimes people trip out that they have an aspect of them that doesn't look that pretty. Like you were saying,
Hmm.
get ready, there's
Yeah.
some ugly
And,
stuff in there.
yeah. And you may say there's not, but then when you start digging in, there might be. It's like
There
it's because
is
you've suppressed it. So
100%
yeah.
guaranteed. There
There
is.
is.
You're a human being, and that's part of the dynamic of this body
and
and this
and the big thing
dimension.
is, yeah, if you but we judge that bad thing. That's the problem. We don't want to go in there because we're judging it. But if we judge it, it locks it in as a negative, and it stays in there. It's a wound and it's a
100%.
pain, and it'll be there
Yep.
forever. So,
Yep.
but you have to go and go, yes, self judge, but do it in a positive way and go, okay, I need to work through this. Not,
Yes.
oh, that was horrible that I did this.
Right.
No, time to move, time to go
Yes.
forward and say, this is what happened. I need to work through this now and see the love. Yes, it may have been something bad that happened to you or you did or whatever it is, but you got to see it and pull it out so that you can finally pull away the onion layer. Just
Hmm.
keep pulling away. It's just get to it.
I think that, again, the thing that you're describing about uh, letting go of the judgment of the things, right? When we talk about that, and I don't think I've mentioned this one before. I'm a big believer, and I've never read this one anywhere. It's sort of my little wild ass thing that I cooked up, but is that the story of Adam and Eve? That Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and was cast out of heaven. And they also say that God didn't cast him out; that he cast himself out, right? That he was cast out, right? And that it's your judgment. It's in other words, when you eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, all of a sudden you know what's right and what's wrong. So you're going around,
Yeah, and
you and
that's
your
and
little
that's what
brain.
when God came was in the art. He was like, "Why are you guys hiding?"
Yeah,
Well, because we're naked.
everything is
Well,
good,
okay.
all good.
How did you know you're naked? Because
Yeah.
you weren't. And yeah, so it's that whole
Yes.
they knew what they did.
They created
So
shame. They created judgment.
It's
which
created.
created shame, right? And that is, again, a
Totally.
mental function. It's a function of the egoic mind. It's a function of this mind, right? And that judgment, when you go around saying you're wrong, you're bad,
Yep.
I would never do that, da 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 da, and that happens oftentimes because of the negative stuff we have inside ourselves, right? That whole idea of projection, right? You're burying
Hmm.
all your negativity and all your wounds and all your shame, and then it comes out in a subconscious way of, I would never do that, and so you project it out and look at other people, and
Hmm.
you cast your judgment on them, and you lower them, you make them feel lower in your mind so that you can feel better about yourself, right?
Yep.
And so that's
Hmm.
what happens. And I always say that one of the hardest things to do is look at everybody as absolutely equal. We're all 100% equal. There's not one iota difference between any human being, but we all
Yeah.
either, um, you know, exalt somebody. Oh my God, they're the greatest. You're that person's amazing or whatever. Or, oh my God, I can't believe that person. I would never do that. Right. So we're always looking up at certain people and down at others rather than
Hmm.
we're all exactly the
Yeah.
same. Right. But that judgment, and that's from this energy of judgment, right? The mind is going around and judging everything as either good and bad. And when you can release some of that and just look at it with clarity, right? And in
Hmm.
Buddhism, again, the term that I would use is discernment. There's a difference between, hey, I don't want to go down that street. I'm going to go over the street,
Hmm.
because that one looks dangerous or whatever, right? Are you judging or are you just making a decision about which direction you want to go, right?
Yeah.
And you might be doing both, right? You could be,
Hmm.
right? But when you can look at everything that arises within you with sort of an open heart, with loving compassion, with uh, yeah, with just sort of a gentle openness and a kindness towards yourself and a kindness towards your own mind and that egoic mind that goes around and judges. I think that sometimes that whole yin yang idea is people will get in battle with their egoic mind. Like in the course, that was a really big thing when they started to say that how the ego and the mind played. They say people would start talking about how they had to kill their ego,
Yeah.
you know and I'm like, good
Hmm.
luck with that one. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yep.
That'll be an interesting battle.
Yeah.
And um you know you know and blessings. I hope, I hope you find your way out of that one. This is not going to work, um so uh but yeah, so that idea that it's your judgment that is disturbing your peace, right?
Hmm.
And that when you start to release some of that, especially as it turns inward, right, towards yourself, and then
Yep.
you start to look at everything with loving compassion, and then that compassion arises naturally. You've connected to that light within, and you start to feel better. Like you said, it just softens. Things get,
Hmm.
things just get more gentle, right? It's just, it's like you
Yeah.
start to be like, no big deal, like whatever, it's okay, whatever. You just become less
Hmm.
triggered by things. I do think that idea that people have buttons, right? And they're triggered by things like, oh, you say that person, you say something to that person, and you hit that button, and the next thing you know, they're like, and on a lot of, and sometimes even in therapy, it's like, how do you deal with the button? You hide the button. How do you get in situations so you protect the button? And it's just like, no, you heal the button. And when you heal the button, it's gone
Hmm.
and nothing happens. They can go and try to hit the stupid thing, and nothing happens to you because you're like, hey, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And then maybe the day later you go, oh wow, yeah, that used to really piss me off when people do that. I forgot. You know what I mean? Like I've had that
Hmm.
happen where people would do things. You'd be in situations and you go, you know what? That used to piss me off. Should it piss me off? And then sometimes you could almost get like retroactively mad. Should I be
Hmm.
mad about that thing? Because I used to get mad about that. Oh, wait, I'm just not mad anymore.
when
Because the
when I
ego's always trying to.
yeah, when I'll talk about, I won't do the whole details, but um had a date, drinks with with a woman, and some things triggered, or there were buttons, and I was like, in my brain going, shut the freak up. What are you talking about? Like it started triggering other things going on. I'm going like,
Yeah.
I go, no, let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
That's not that person. This
Yeah.
is somebody else. Because I was putting somebody else on that person
Yeah.
just because of what a comment that was made
Yeah.
triggered that, and I
Yeah.
put it on them. But no, that's not them. Let it
Yeah.
go. Let it go. Let it go. And so I had to quickly
Yeah.
get through. Thankfully, I quickly got through that. But you have to recognize that sometimes that is a trigger
Yeah.
of something else that has happened to you. So,
Yes.
um, so
Yes.
that's a definite thing to look inside and to like realize this is something like if that were to happen to someone out there, if you're going through this, like, wow, why did I react that way? You need to go inside and go, oh, so this happened here, here, and here, and that's making me react to this person. But that person is not that person. They just said a word. They just said a
Yeah.
certain comment, and so you need to look. That's again looking inside yourself and seeing what caused that.
Yeah.
And so that's where that onion layer may have to be peeled back a little bit.
And
So
intercepting that in real time while you're in the
yeah,
middle of it and catching it and being able to release it. There's some more mastery, Dave. That's some badass shit
I
right there.
know.
Because that's
It
not
was
easy to do.
hard.
That's not easy to do. That train, once it gets rolling and you jump on that train, I was, the judgment train. Once you jump on that
Yep.
motherfucker, it's hard because you're rolling. It's like a steamroller. It has a lot of momentum. And once you're going with it, it's hard to get off of it because you're going to go spinning around for a little bit.
Yep.
So it's better just to watch it rip by and never get on it because once you on it, it's boom. It's hard to
Yeah.
get off.
It's the crazy train, baby.
It's a crazy train,
That's
exactly.
Ozzy Osbourne's crazy train.
Exactly.
It's a, and I won't say the whole thing, but I love it because my brother loved Ozzy Osbourne. Thank you, brother Bob. Um, it's like Ozzy Osbourne says. So there's a saying, and it's a, because this is my brother. It says, I don't ride the crazy train. I drive the mother. You know what? He goes, I'm like, that's my brother. He doesn't ride it. He drives it,
He
man.
drives it.
But that's what you're saying, because that thing's coming. Like, I'm jumping on. I'm gonna drive this thing.
Yeah, I'm
It's
gonna
like,
take
no,
control of
jump
that bitch.
on. I need to jump off this real quick.
Yeah,
So,
it's better to let it whiz by. And go.
like that doesn't
If
look fun.
happiness is the goal, if happiness is the goal, it's way better to just let it whiz by. That's all I'm gonna say.
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah, I mean that's really a big part of it, and just like you're saying, when we judge ourselves and have anger, we judge others in that same way, or even harsher. I mean,
yep,
we come out, a lot deeper. But I encourage everybody out there to just kind of start a slow process of when you feel something, some weirdness in your body, some anxiety or some anger, just stop, take some breaths. Like Sheldon was talking last time, you can do the square. That's what you said, the square
the
or
box
the,
breathing or
yeah, the box breathing. Yep.
stop, drop, and breathe. Just drop
Stop,
into your
drop, and
heart
breathe.
and breathe a little bit,
Hmm.
and
And just
take
kind
some
of go,
deep,
okay, where's this
slow
coming
breaths.
from? What's causing this anxiety? What's causing this situation? And just kind of step, if I can say, step out of yourself and look.
Hmm.
Maybe look around, go like, wow, what's going on in my body right now? What's
Yep.
going on in this situation? It's like, oh, so this is, I'm kind of nervous about this because maybe when I was 5 years old, this happened. You
Yep.
know, I'm going to be a lifeguard, but I'm going to go rescue somebody. But and when I was 5, someone rescued me,
Mhm.
and so now I'm starting to get nervous about going and rescuing somebody. It's like, well, that's weird. I'm okay with swimming, but all of a sudden something triggers. So you got to go deep inside. It may
Yep.
not be that, maybe something smaller, but just be willing when you feel that weirdness and you're in a situation, just take a moment to stop, drop, and what is it?
Breathe.
Breathe.
Stop, drop,
There
and
you go.
breathe.
Stop, drop, and breathe. I was going to
Yep.
say roll. Sorry. So I was going right with roll.
Yeah, you got into the firefighting mode.
Sorry, man. Too many things I've done in my careers of life. So all that just I this week, because last week we talked about breathing,
Mhm.
going out and take time. Just take some breaths. When you get into that little stressful situation, take some breaths. In this next challenge is just to do that breathing. And when you're doing that breathing, now go a little further and go inside you and say, okay, what's in there? What's causing this little situation right now? It may be nothing to you. It may be something that just a small trigger, but start looking in to find the good.
Yep.
Because find the good if you can. Keep that good in there. But we want you to make sure always be able to look at the bad and the ugly, because that is part of what you need to do to be healthy.
Yeah.
To be healthy, to be happy, and to be just on that peace.
There's a teaching way of mastery that says that love is a way of describing that unconditional love that we were trying to talk about, like a mother's love.
Uh-huh.
And I always kind of keep this in my head as am I in this sort of what place? And if I'm not, then I know I'm not in unconditional love. And it was like love allows all things, accepts all things,
Yep.
embraces all things, and trusts all things. And
Oh wow, love
I
that.
would say it allows everything,
Love that.
it accepts everything, And accepting can be tricky, right? Sometimes I've heard other teachers where they say, "Oh, I don't like to accept," whatever. There's this idea of, I'm giving in or whatever. But it's this whole idea of openness, right? That you're allowing
Hmm.
everything that is there to come up, and you're accepting that, hey, this is where I'm at right now. I don't have to stay here, but this is what the feeling is in me right now, right? Allowing, accepting, trusting the perfection of every moment, right?
Hmm.
That you know, in God's time, kind of thing. Hey, that there's a higher plan, that there's divine, there's a divine perfection in every moment, or whatever that is, that helps you to understand that that you can trust in what's happening to you right now, right? And then
Yeah.
embracing is the hardest one, right? Because sometimes, when it sucks, you don't want to embrace it, right?
No.
But if you can allow it and accept it and trust it, that's a lot. That's a long ways towards being in that state of loving energy, of unconditionally loving energy towards what's coming up within you. um, I have
And
a quick story. I think we're kind of, are we good?
go ahead. Um,
I did,
what about, yeah? Go.
okay.
Quick story.
So I had this quick story. This was years ago, but I was kind of early down this path. Um, and back in the day when you had a phone that was sitting on your desk and no
Mhm.
cell phones. So a little bit of time reference there. So I was on the phone with this girl, and she said something to me, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember it pissed me off, right? So I kind of hung up the phone like bam, and I was pissed. And I was just down this breathing, starting to breathe, and it was more martial arts stuff, and internal breathing exercises. But for whatever reason, when I hung up the phone, I started doing a breathing exercise, and I was just like, and I was like you were saying, that innocent wonder, I was tripping out, right? And I
Hmm.
could feel the anger rising up like an energy wave from my feet. And the weird thing was that it felt like it was about
Wow.
2 feet in front of me and at my feet. And it was coming like, so it was a little bit in front and down low. And it started to come
Wow.
towards my body and rise up. So it was kind of rising up. And it was like this wave of anger, right?
Wow.
And I was sitting there trying to do this breathing exercise. So I was tripping out on the breathing. I was like, and I was focusing on my breath so much, but I was like, holy shit, there's this weird energy. And the energy was like this energy that just wanted to make you mad. Like it was the energy of
Wow.
anger, right? And it was like, ooh, and I could feel it, and I could feel it making me mad, right? But for some reason, I was tripping out on the breathing exercise so much. I was just like, oh, stay with the breath, stay with the breath. And this thing came up and it went, "Roar," and when it got into my chest and it was rising up through my chest and head, oh, it took every ounce of like sort of wisdom and mastery, whatever you call it, of just focus, because I was focused on my breathing,
So you're
that I
fighting
stayed
this thing
focused on the
off.
breathing, and it went whoop out the top of my head and pop, bink,
Wow.
gone. 30, 45 seconds later, and I literally was like standing in the room going, what the hell was that? What just happened? And I wasn't mad anymore. Couldn't even remember why I was supposed to be mad. Like I was just, what just happened? Like, but the energy, it was like this wave of energy just ripping through you. And
The
I
anger was coming
re
like, yeah, we got him now. We're gonna have this fun. We're gonna go ride
it
that
was
crazy
the
train,
train.
baby. Let's get it.
It was the train. And I didn't hop on that train. I let it go by. But
Like,
I
beep,
just
beep.
remember, I never forgot that. It was like 25 years ago. And it was one of
Wow.
those moments that was really impactful for me, where I was just like, wow, and all the stuff we've been talking about, right? Looking at it,
Hmm.
breathing through things, and that this too shall pass. It was like one of those clouds. It was a big, heavy, dark storm cloud, and it was ripping right through. But I was able to just sort of stay in that sort of third person, almost detached witnessing, because I was witnessing the breath and the physical sensations in my body. So I was not jumping on the train of, yeah, you never should have said that, you fucking bitch, or whatever. You know what I mean? And
Whatever
all
it
the blah,
was,
blah,
yeah.
blah, the story, right? I just stayed with the sensation and the breathing. And that sucker just went bink. And I just remember when it went out at the top of my head, I was just like, stunned, like what the frick just
Wow.
happened to me.
That's awesome.
and and it was done. I was just like, I think I'm good. And like I said, when that kind of clearing really happens, I couldn't even remember why I was mad. I was like, what happened? Oh. Which is
Wow.
how it happens now. Like sometimes I'll be like, was I supposed to be mad at something? I can't remember anymore. Anyway.
But that's cool because you're at a point. Obviously, you were further along than ever I was. But you've had that knowledge. You've worked through the breathing and know that, so you could sit there and stay strong. So understand. like me, I may not been able to be that strong. So, but it may happen, but you slowly get better, just like athletics. You know,
Yep.
I may
You got to
run a
train it.
400, I run all out the first 300, and I'm dead the last 100. Okay, run again, run 300 plus a little more. Next one, a little more, a little more. So as you breathe, you become stronger, and that's where you doing it now and then slowly built you up to where you could fight off that wave coming up.
Yep.
So,
That's why you have to
so that's what we're
practice when you're
saying.
not in the
Hmm.
trauma,
Yep. So that when you
so
get
that
there,
you
ooh,
so you have
hmm,
the tool, you have the know-how, you understand how it works, you understand how it feels, you understand
yeah.
how that tool, which is the breath, you understand how that tool works a little bit better so that you can utilize it and implement it in those moments when you need to.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes the story I was gonna tell you real quick. It's a real short one, but when people are, um, when I see something going on in an anger situation or someone's angry at me, um, it's not that I step away. It's just like I kind of instead of getting angry at them now, I just kind of look at them and go like, I wonder what they're going through. What's
yep,
causing this anger? I look at me real quick. I'm like, okay, did I say something? Did I do something? Have I triggered them?
yep,
But I'm like, okay, I didn't do anything, but they're just upset about the moment, and so something triggered them
hmm
and I may have triggered it, but I don't know. So it's kind of like that a quick look at myself and then just kind of go, okay, let them get through this. There's something that triggered them. It's more of a then it becomes more of a
hmm
compassion
Yeah, that's
thing,
beautiful, dude. That is
and
beautiful, man.
but it's hard because they're yelling at me at times, so you're kind of like, shut
They're freaking
up.
right now.
Like, whatever.
Are you
But it's
okay?
not like they're like, "Eh," but it's just like
Yeah,
their anger is like, wow,
yeah,
okay, what they're
yeah,
going through, because there's nothing
yeah,
that around here that should cause that.
yeah,
So yeah, so it's kind of like that weird of being able to step back again and going like, okay, what's going on here?
yeah,
And kind of calm myself down, and then kind of like, how can I calm them down? How can I get
yeah,
this to where we can have this conversation?
yeah.
So
That's beautiful, dude.
yeah.
That's
So
beautiful.
this week my challenge is to you is to take those breaths and look within when you start feeling that little bit of um, anxiety or something comes up, um, and
Yeah,
even when
last
you're
week's the
even
challenge was just to breathe, to do the
just to
breathing.
breathe. Hmm.
And now we're saying,
Yeah.
okay, start turning in, looking in when something might come up, look inward
Hmm.
and do the breathing.
Yeah.
And that'll be
Hmm.
the challenge.
Yeah. And just kind of see what it is. Can you tell where it's coming from?
Yep.
Why am I feeling this way? Oh, because sometimes when I had that anxiety, it was like, why am I feeling this? Oh, it's because something was either on TV or something was said, and that was something that was relating back to my marriage, and
Yeah.
it was hard for me because I'm like, that's what I loved my marriage, and it's like, whoa, this is hard,
Yep.
So it was
Yep.
hard for me. It's like, oh, okay, we'll let that go. So it was just a trigger, and so
Yep.
I know, okay, that's a trigger now, so I can let that go,
Yep.
and it wasn't an angry thing. It was just something that I was wanting to be back in,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So
That's
yeah.
that's huge, dude. That's beautiful. And being able to pay attention like that, right? Because and usually when we start the path, it's really big stuff, and then as you get further down, it's more and more subtle stuff, because the big stuff's already been sort of released, and then
Yeah.
there's these little
Yeah, the
subtler
problem is
things.
the big stuff comes first.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, right? That's how it works usually, right? We get the big blop up to the side of the head. Now you got to deal with whatever. Um, um, but yeah, uh, being able to be present even when the subtler things are happening,
Hmm.
and having that awareness is huge. So that'll be the
Yeah.
challenge.
Yep.
Continuing the breathing, continuing the breath and the mindful breath while you're looking at whatever might be coming up for you, and holding that space for yourself of
Hmm.
unconditional love and compassion for you. You deserve it. 100 million%. You deserve
Hmm.
it. We all deserve it. And we deserve more love, not less. Under all conditions and all circumstances, there is never a situation or circumstance where you don't deserve more love. Um,
Correct.
and when we and you can do that for yourself, um, there is a reclamation of your power, your own
Yep.
sovereignty, your own divine sovereignty that
Hmm.
arises naturally within you. And as you feel that power, the expression of that power becomes more love for everyone else.
Exactly. And no, when you go in, as we're talking about, you're going in this week, it's hard. So just know that it may be a big
Brace for
push, a big
impact.
hurt. Yeah, brace for impact, and just go. Okay, I got this. I
Yeah.
know it. Sheldon and David said, "I got this," and I just take
Yes.
some breaths, just bump into the wall, and go. Okay, that's the wall I got to deal with, and
And
then
I'm
you can
deserving of
process
this
through from
love.
there. Yeah. So, so hit the wall hard, cry a little bit, and then you're okay.
and we'll talk to you next week.
Yes. Hope
We'll
you
give
guys
you
have a
big
great week. It's been great talking to you today, and I hope you're have a great week and keep that smile on.
for all one of you that's still listening to this as we're dragging
No.
down. Anyway, we appreciate whoever is still listening.
All y'all.
Um, yeah, for y'all, whoever's on this, continuing on this journey with, we definitely appreciate it. If you have any comments, please leave them in the. If you're watching through YouTube, leave a comment, or Spotify has places for comments as well. Definitely appreciate those.
And subscribe so
And
they get pinged every week when we put these out. So
yep,
make sure you subscribe to YouTube and Spotify.
and we will see you all next week. Big hugs, much love.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing this
Keep
journey with us.
yep. Keep that smile on. Have a great week.